Assessors must be able to assess learning material. This lesson provides guidance to assessors about assessing learning material and adapting to different types of learners and learning environment. The assessment of learning material is a quality assurance process, and in order for the material to reflect quality at the end, we must have quality in every stage of the development of the material. When assessing training material, the assessor is checking that the material is valid. That means the assessor must assess the training material and determine if actually provides the job-critical knowledge, skills, and abilities required for proficient job performance. Learning is a process that leads to change, which occurs as a result of experience and increases the potential for improved performance and future learning. Reliable learning material consistently produces individuals who can perform to the standard expected in the workplace as expressed in the relevant industry competency standards. The questions to be considered by the assessor when assessing learning material should include: does the learning material provide realistic working conditions that adequately prepare the candidate to perform his duties? Was the candidate required to demonstrate the skills and knowledge that are identified in the assessment as critical to proficiency? Was the candidate required to rely on his or her own skills and knowledge? Always assess learning material to ensure it is suitable for the level of the vocational qualification. Learning material has to be assessed in the context of the learning environment it will be delivered in. Instructor-led learning is basically a school. Students attend classes, and instructors present lessons in a sequence. The classroom and multiple students present useful opportunities for group activities and discussions, but it also has limitations. And the student-to-instructor ratio matters. In instructor-led learning, instructors provide the academic work and knowledge that students must acquire. The students invest time and effort on the material, and with the instructor. This approach is effective with young students who need strong adult guidance in order to learn. Student success is based on exam results. The learning content is decided by society, through the National Education Authority. An institution-led group learning is basically a training department in an industry or utility. These students, sometimes called apprentices, perform practical work, as well as attending classes. With an institution-led group, there will be opportunities to make learning material for individual and group practical demonstrations and projects. The learning content is decided by the company and the industry standards. Self-led learning usually involves online and distance learning. These two delivery methods together are called blended learning. If we add in task books, workbooks, and a personal tutor, it's called learning puree. No, not really. It's just a really cool way to learn. When the online training is automatic, like watching videos, as opposed to interactive like a video call, the learner primarily interacts with the material on his own. The learner contacts the tutor when he needs help. The student and tutor develop a coaching relationship. That was a quick look at a few basic learning environments. Now let's look at some basic learning personalities. We use our senses to learn. We use sight, hearing, and touch. Each individual will have a preferred learning style. One of the things that can help you to figure out a learning style is to ask the student to demonstrate something. The student will often try to demonstrate it in the style he prefers. Visual learners learn by reading or seeing pictures. They understand and remember things by sight. They can picture what they are learning in their head, and they learn best with methods that are primarily visual. Visual learners like to see what they are learning. Auditory learners learn by hearing and listening. They understand and remember things they've heard. They store information by the way it sounds, and they have an easier time understanding spoken instructions than written ones. Read-write learners learn primarily by reading and writing. They prefer to learn information by reading notes, handouts, and textbooks. These learners make use of dictionaries and other reference materials. They also benefit by rewriting notes and rereading notes silently again and again. Kinesthetic learners prefer to perform physical activity to learn something. They want to be an active participant, instead of passively listening to a lecture or watching a demonstration. For kinesthetic learners, the best way of learning something new is by having their hands on the things they are trying to learn. We have considered learning environments and types of learners. Let's look at learning content. As an example, we will source content for a seafarer course called Vessel Operations Level 3. The certificate from this course is a prerequisite for the Boatmaster 2 license needed to operate boats professionally. We try to keep the guidance general. The best place to start is a review of the occupational standard, because it provides guidance on what should be in the assessments. A review is done of an international table of knowledge and competencies for similar seafarers. A task book for similar seafarers is reviewed. A review is done of the syllabus provided by the authority issuing the license. The International Code of Safety for Seafarers is also reviewed. Back in the Designing Assessments lesson, we said that practical demonstrations and projects with products have the highest value because the assessor sees the candidate doing the work or the results of actual work, and that they also capture the most information for the time expended. Well, the same principle holds for designing learning material. Back in the Developing Assessment Tools lesson, we also said that oral questioning can be used for checking skills for dealing with emergencies and describing complicated processes. Design lessons where these topics are discussed, rather than written about in essays. And design appropriate learning material that teaches relevant writing skills. Some workers have to write a log at the end of their shift. Design lessons that practice that. We also recommend designing written exercises that require the labeling of diagrams. Okay, we're doing well. We considered the environment, the learners, the content, and we have the assessments in mind already. It's lesson plan time. Wikipedia says, a lesson plan is a teacher's detailed description of the course of instruction for a lesson. A daily lesson plan is developed to guide class learning. Details will vary depending on the preference of the teacher, subject being covered, and the needs of the students. A lesson plan is the instructor's road map of what students need to learn and how it will be done effectively during the class time. Then, you can design appropriate learning activities and develop strategies to obtain feedback on student learning. A learning objective states what a student will learn by the end of a lesson or module. For example, if we all watch the same movie, and then we are questioned about it, the questions could come in different levels. We could be asked, who was the star of the movie? We could be asked, what is the main point of the movie? What questions would you ask in an interview with the star? How does this movie relate to your life? And now think about what we would need to answer our question. It would help if we were told why we were watching. Language used in learning material and assessment has to be very precise, especially in the instructions and the questioning. Students should be able to recall facts, terms, basic concepts from the learning material. The learning material uses words like find, define, and choose to indicate material for remembering. Students should be able to show understanding of facts and concepts by organizing, describing, and interpreting them. The learning material uses words like compare, contrast, and summarize to indicate material for understanding. Students should be able to apply learned facts, techniques, and rules successfully to a new or different situation. The learning material uses words like solve, plan, and identify to indicate material for applying knowledge. Students should be able to deconstruct and examine information to identify causes and find evidence to support theories. The learning material uses words like classify and inspect to indicate material for analysis. Students should be able to give and justify opinions about information and ideas received, actions taken, or quality of work based on given criteria. The learning material uses words like justify and appraise to indicate material for evaluating. Students should be able to compile elements of learning to propose alternative solutions to problems. The learning material uses words like combine, design, and improve to indicate material for creating. Here is an example of a lesson plan from a coastal navigation program. Down at the bottom of the slide, it says the plan belongs to Module 9, which is the international regulations for the prevention of collisions at sea. This plan is delivered in week 5 of the course. There is a column for learning objectives, which are what learners will know or be able to do at the end of the lesson. There is a column for learner activities. That is where we record how the learner will develop the skill or knowledge. The lesson plan has a column for content topics, meaning what topics and skills will be taught. The plan also has a column for learning material and resources for the lesson. The lesson plan also has spaces for lesson duration, how the lesson will be assessed, and the learner support that is available. If we scan the first learning objective here, we want the student to be able to identify a type of object in a particular condition. The learner activities, or things we want him to do, include read the relevant chapter and complete the formative assessment. In the content topics, we see the topics of number, color, and position of lights. In the learning resources, we see a copy of some regulations and the course manual. The duration of the first lesson around half day. The assessment is a formative assessment. Under learner support, we see some details for contacting a tutor. Formative assessments are used to monitor student learning to provide ongoing feedback that can be used by instructors to improve their teaching and by students to improve their learning. More specifically, formative assessments help students identify their strengths and weaknesses and target areas that need work. There is no grade awarded. Outline broadly how you can create learning material to suit different learning personalities. The read/write people will love the textbook and the workbook to some extent, because they have to write the answers in the workbook. The read/write guys will not be so comfortable with the task book, because they now have to go outside and get their hands dirty. The kinesthetic boys are happiest with the task book, because they are outside getting their hands dirty. They love that, but they hate paperwork. The auditory and visual learners will enjoy the presentations the most. Please be reminded of the quality checks required for all learning content. There are hundreds, maybe thousands, of coastal navigation textbooks already in existence. Why can't the read-write learners just use one of those? Why did SS&T develop a textbook? None of the existing coastal navigation textbooks used real examples and exercises based on the Trinidad coast. Several foreign navigation textbooks were reviewed for topic sequencing and questioning style. Then, using the performance criteria from the relevant units of the occupational standard is an easy way to make a task book. Take a look at any OS and see for yourself. The completed task book is part of the candidate's portfolio of evidence of competency. Presentations. I think the SS&T developer is a visual learner. He loves doing these. He did this one. He develops or finds what he wants to show. Often, it is a case of what he can show. Anyway, visuals first. He then writes what he wants to say about each slide. Adjustments to sequencing, and even content, can occur as the visuals and scripts come together. Use the scripts to record audio for each slide. You can use text-to-voice software, or you can record your voice into a microphone. Add the appropriate audio file to each slide. Use software to convert your slideshow to a presentation video. Your slideshow is now ready for your LMS and YouTube. The workbook can be used where students have to perform work that involves measurements or calculations. So a workbook can have templates of the forms used to record the measurements and calculations on the job. The students complete the workbook on the job or during simulations. The completed workbook is part of the candidate's portfolio of evidence of competency. The occupational standard is the minimum standard of competency for a job. Think about what minimum means. A guy working at minimum standard is barely holding on to his job. If you just train people to the standard, they will not even be average workers. To create an exceptional country, we need to develop exceptional workers with training material that exceeds the minimum standard.